All right, welcome to part 3 of the exclusive interview with Marshall Fogel, super collector and owner of the best PSA 10 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card. In this part, we got into more life advice. What made Marshall successful over the years, what matters to him in life, and how others can be successful, as well as some really deep thoughts about the future of the hobby and what he thinks it will look like in 10 or even 50 years.
That gets to it's perfect. Like that gets to the next question I wanted to ask, and this is more around not necessarily even the hobby. Like we have audience members of all ages from many different countries as well. And understanding you and your life and you growing up and your vocation, your career, and now this hobby, you've been very successful both in your professional life and this collectibles life and this hobby that you're in now. And why do you think that is? Why have you been successful?
Yeah, it's the way I grew up. I'm a street guy. I worked construction to get through school. I had the worst grades in the world at CU. I barely got into law school. I barely graduated college. I barely graduated law school. I worked my butt off sanding cars, selling earrings, pierced earrings to prostitutes and bars. I mean, selling light bulbs in apartment houses. So I learned the street. And I always said to myself, I'm not gonna be poor. I'm not going to work for anybody, and I'm going to make it. I come from a really good family, got great parents, but we worked hard. And when I left the house with a law degree and I passed the bar exam barely, I had $200, and I sleep on a guy's couch. So for all you out there, think that I came from money, BS. I earned it. And I think that to be successful, there are 4 things you got to do in life: family, faith, friendship, and freedom. That's how I think if you follow those examples and get out and not feel sorry for yourself, you're going to be successful. That's the answer to your question. Family, faith, friendship, and freedom. How much better can it be? And not feel sorry for yourself. That's the road to success. Whether you're collecting, whether you want to, how you want to live your life. Isn't it hard?
Yeah. Just to close out that thought before Nick, if I could just one more. What is your definition of freedom? The last F of that. How do you define freedom?
Keeping the government off my ass. That's one. And to look,
love it.
Democracy is very simple. It's competitive, and you have to earn your lifestyle by merit, not by equity, inclusion, and social justice, and all this crap. You know what? That's feeling sorry for yourself, victimizing yourself, and feeling like the government owes you anything. The government owes people that fight in wars and that have disabilities and that need a hand up, not a handout. And so, look, I've been on Father Woody's homeless shelter for 10 years. I feel for people that can't make it. If you think about it, we are the longest living democracy in history. The Romans couldn't do it. They tried, and then you got Julius Caesar as an emperor. So when you think about it, we're the longest lasting democracy, but I don't know whether we're going to last very much longer if we don't start to develop a responsibility of how lucky we are to live in this country. And so I think there's a greater truth than the reality of how we live. And the greater truth, it goes back to freedom, faith, family, and friendship. And that's the circle that I like to live my life in. I hope I didn't overstate what you asked me, but that's the answer to your question.
Part of what's made me do well in life is to listen to people like you frame up what they think is successful. And Man, what you just said is going to stick with me for a while. It's actually it's pretty amazing. I think that's great advice for everyone. So thank you. Um, so we wanted to do one final section to kind of bring this to the future of collecting. Um, so just thinking about yourself and thinking about the hobby, and we'll just ask you a few questions here, and that'll kind of wrap things up. So the first one is what plans do you have for your collection long term? Will it stay in the family? You're going to donate it to a museum? You're going to put it on display? Like, what are your plans for these cards in the future?
Well,
These collectibles.
that's the most important question you could ask me, because um, I I have a philosophy about my collection. I share it with the community. I did the All-Star game for the Rockies. I had a big exhibit at the Carter History Museum in 2018 when I displayed the Mantle card again, and we drew 150,000 people on that exhibit in 2018, which is equal to the Hall of Fame's attendance as well. And I also exhibit at Yankee Stadium. I'm a major exhibitor there. I always wanted to have my name at Yankee Stadium and take Mickey Mantle's place, but I never was good enough. But my name is on a sign at the museum at Yankee Stadium, so that worked out pretty well. So basically, I like sharing my collection, and I know if I sold it, you could never put it together again. And so what I've tried to do is to find a way to keep the collection together and call it the Cooperstown of the West, Hall of Legends. In other words, I not only have baseball, but I have other sports as well. Like I have Bobby Orr's Hall of Fame stick that when he 1972 he scored the most goals for a defenseman. I got Patrick Waugh Stanley Cup jersey, so I don't have a lot of it, but I'm trying to get a loan agreement with a museum so that this collection stays together. And you and I know, the three of us, you can't put this together again. In fact, I invite the two of you to come out here and take a look at it, and you'll see why I want to never break it up. So I haven't figured out. If I die tomorrow, I don't know where my collection is in a safe place, but I think my kids feel the same way, that it needs to be kept together, and for the community of this country to enjoy it. Hall of Legends, the Marshall Fogel collection. Nick Andrews can be the podcaster.
I like it. Marshall, I'm just curious. I mean, how do you want to be remembered? Other than, I mean, you are obviously a very generous person. Like that is one word that comes to mind right away. But how do you want to be remembered in the hobby?
Well, first of all, people like me that pass away sooner or later, my name will fade away. Someday somebody will say, I remember somebody named Marshall Fogel that had a great collection. I think that it's always a short term how you're remembered. There are people that, like Al Rosen, Mr. Mint, people don't know who he is anymore, or Barry Halper, or Frank Nagy, or some of these older guys. So I would like to be remembered more so of what I represent than my name. And I think I represent a sense of community, a sense of having fun collecting, a sense of enjoying the company that you get by meeting other people that have the same experience. And also, if you are lucky like me, it's helping those that need help. I mean, I have guys call me up and say, I have a 62 Topps collection that my dad took care of. I talk to anybody who wants to get my advice. So I think I want to be remembered basically simply this. Marshall Fogel was a nice guy. That's simple.
Love it. Yes.
You are definitely a nice guy.
Yes, you are.
Yes. I mean, yeah, just for the audience, we've been talking for almost a month, just off and on, which has been nice, just to kind of chat about the hobby. So Marshall, I've got kind of the final question here. It's a deep one. You can take as long as you want to answer it. Where do you think the hobby will be? And the hobby, I mean collecting, right? Just collecting anything. Where do you think it'll be in 10 years or 30 years or 50 years?
Well, I have to break it down historically. Here's what my view of it is. What really hurt baseball and collecting was the era of the steroids. That really compromised a lot of the home run titles, RBIs. You guys like Barry Bonds and Palmeiro and some of these guys that took drugs. I think that's one thing that's hurt the that hurt the market and divided between vintage and modern. Because the second is most people that play baseball, a lot of them don't come from this country. So it's when you call it, so people become very nostalgic. So if you go back from 1880s, Civil War, all the way the history of baseball until, say, the year of when Mantle was, the year of the end of Mickey Mantle, there's a nostalgia connected to it. There's an emotional thing connected to it. It's like think about this, Field of Dreams and The Natural. What are the last 20 seconds of both those movies? Playing catch with your son. That's simple. Playing catch with your son. And both of them were estranged from their fathers. And baseball put them together. So when you see guys like Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays, Sandy Koufax, Clemente, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Walter Johnson, people know who they are. People remember Dizzy Dean, Daffy Dean, the Commerce Comet, the Yankee Clipper, Stan the Man, Whitey Ford, Yogi, Little Phil Rizzuto, and people don't, the Duke of Flatbush, that's nostalgia. They don't know, Mike Trout's not the Duke of anything. So people that are young are always going to remember Babe Ruth because it's part of who we are. It's part of the Field of Dreams. It's part of the natural. It's part of the perfect game. So I think that the future is the vintage market in memorabilia and cards is going to become an art form. It already is, in a sense, a wealth management asset. That's the best way to say it. You can buy stock or you can buy a 52 Mantle card, and you'll be just fine with the 52 Mantle card. So it's become a wealth management based on the nostalgia of the time. The other market, it doesn't have the same nostalgia to it, but it brings in a plethora of people to create a market in sports, whether it's hockey, soccer, lacrosse, or whatever. So the future's bright, big time for the wealth management money, and big time for people that enjoy the hobby, and big time for people that can afford a moderate amount of money to have fun with it. The whole key to all this is look at the people you get to meet. You go to a show, the National Convention. I mean, come on, it's like a happening at Groman's Theater at the Academy Awards. I mean, it's lights and sound and excitement, and it's just it's a movie that'll never end.
Well, Marshall, we want to be respectful of your time, and thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your insights, your thoughts, a lot of tips. We learned a lot today. Thank you for your generosity. We always end our show with our guests and just give them the opportunity to talk about kind of how you can follow them or reach out to them. But I think specifically for you, because you have referenced that you're featured in the Smithsonian from time to time in different museums, and you referenced a few books. So is there anything that you want to tell the audience about, like, especially more recently, how people can see your collection, learn about your collection, and who knows, maybe even reach out to you, because I know you're still a collector, so maybe you're still looking for some things as well.
I do want to tell you, since you've been kind enough to say nice things about me, I think I might say to your listeners and the people that watch your show, you both perform a very valuable service to help people learn about how to collect, and I'm just pleased to have a part of your show. It's been a real pleasure to know both of you.
The pleasure is ours. Thank you, Marshall. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks again. We really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. This was the final episode of our Marshall Fogel interview. This was a deep one, Nick. Got very, very just philosophical life lessons. This one hit home with me a lot. I know that it hit home with you. I could tell by the inflection of your voice, your body language. This one really kind of hit you as well. What are your initial thoughts, Nick, around this one?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I've been successful in business. I retired at 40 and I'm happy, married, have children. I feel like I have a good life, and, I see Marshall at his age, early 80s. He seems very happy. He seems very fulfilled. He seems like he's really enjoying this thing he's built or this collection he has. Seems like he has great relationships. He's like checking all the boxes. And, when you asked him what his keys to success were, he said 4 things. And I actually got a little emotional. You might not be able to tell from the poor audio, but I actually, I really did. He said freedom, faith, family, and friendship. And then, we asked him to define freedom. This is what hit home for me. Freedom, he's just like the freedom. Well, he joked. He's like freedom
Joked
from
around
the
the
government.
tax man.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we all want that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, of course.
Strive for it every time around April every
Unfortunately,
year.
our freedom comes at a price, and that price is taxes. But the it's kind of like where I was like 15 years ago. And some of you watching, you may be in your 20s, you may be in your teens, and you may be just kind of finding your way through life. And you got to go to this job, and you don't really love the job. And I've always been kind of seeking that freedom, and I've never been disappointed with, like, if I've tried to get more freedom and more time, just something simple from like negotiating more vacation weeks, right? I've always taken 4 weeks of vacation when I had a job, ever. Like, even if it cost me like more money. And I think that's important. Like having something like to feel like you're free is important. And that's why I got into, owning a business, because I wanted more time to just do what I want. I ended up working harder, but I ended up working my way, and it was the fun way. And I think that's such an important part of those 4, keys that he laid out. I mean, what did you think of?
I mean, that particular part really hit me too. I just love the 4 that he brought up. And yeah, I asked the question around freedom because that's the one that like really hit me, and you could go in so many different directions with it. Nick, to your point around, talking to maybe a teenager or someone in their early 20s, like Nick and I have been like, we've been teenagers, and we've been in our early 20s or even our mid 20s or even our early 30s. And things get hard. They do. And there are plenty of times where you feel like you don't have freedom, and it's tough to make your bill payments and what have you. But I think advice there, and I try to give this advice a lot. And I thought about Marshall, and I'm like, Marshall didn't actually say it, but it definitely is. It rings true. Is he was a trial attorney, right? What are some of the things that trial attorneys are good at?
Yeah.
They're good at speaking. They're good at negotiating. They're good at arguing a point.
Yep.
And what do we do in collecting? We do a lot of negotiating and a lot of speaking, and you got to make a lot of relationships.
We sure do.
And so
we make our case for cards too. 85,
Yeah.
84 star versus 86 Fleer. Here's why.
That's right. That's right. But for those that maybe feel like they don't have the freedom that they want, you have to lean into your strengths.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what you are good at and then lean into it. and double down on it and triple down on it and quadruple down on it. And that's what Marshall did.
Yeah.
That's why he was so successful as a collector. It's because what he did as an attorney, like he took all those skills and leaned into them more as a collector. At least that's what I think. I mean, again, he didn't come out and say that, but that is certainly a way to move you towards being free. If you're doing what you, I don't even want to say do what you love, but you just know that you're good at it. Like you might
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
you might actually not like public speaking, but every time you get up on stage, like your coworkers are like, wow, you did like a really good job with that. You got to lean into those things, and
And
that will help you get freedom.
learn from people like
Yeah.
Marshall. You know,
Hmm.
if anybody in the audience wants to reach out, you can find me on Instagram, leave a comment here, whatever. I could give you a couple dozen books to read that'll probably change your life and change your perspective. And you can just listen to them on the way to work. And there's ways to balance this. You know, if you want to get into digital marketing, you know, and you're at a big company and you're not, you could be a clerk at the company, right? Just email the brand manager, even if they're in like a city in another state, and just be like, I work at this company. I'm really interested in what you do. And, you know, tell me more about digital marketing.
Hmm.
And you're going to learn a ton and you're going to get paid while you learn. And who knows what could come from that? There's always these angles you can take, and then you can get more free, right? Like that's the key. You're never like locked in. There's always like a way. And the way to find that path is to just listen to stories of other people who have done it like 1700 different ways. And then
Yes.
eventually it's like a puzzle. You'll figure it out.
Yes. Yes. He touched on hard work, which is a
Mm,
no-brainer. But I think sometimes today people think, in this such a digital age that maybe they don't have to work as hard.
right.
But I think there's different ways to work hard, even in a digital age, right? To Nick's point, you just got to grind and reach out to people and make opportunities for yourself. But he did talk about that, and he
Yeah.
specifically said, I wrote down that he, at a young age, refused to be poor. He just refused it. He talked about a lot of the jobs he had and how he was kind of not necessarily wealthy when he was younger, and he had to grind it out, and he had all these different jobs, and he barely passed high school, and he barely passed the bar exam to become an attorney. And um, but I think again, it's we have to learn from people. You learn from history, you learn from Marshall. Like just refuse, whether it's being poor or I refuse to be antisocial, right? Maybe you're trying to get out there and network more and you don't feel comfortable in it, but you just got to refuse and you just got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to
Don't
do it.
blame. Don't be like blame, 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 blame.
Hmm.
It's this person's fault that I'm this and that. Just don't. It's your fault. It's always your fault. You
Yeah.
own it. You own
Yeah.
it. So just make something of it.
The
That was
world's
great.
busy.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own lives, Nick, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all
Exactly.
worried about themselves. So who's going to worry about you other than you, right? You got to
Yeah.
get out there and do it. So yeah, the hard work thing really, again, that just hit home for me as well. I think, we can relate to that.
It was like I'm a street guy. I'm a
Yeah.
street guy. Like, and it's
Yeah.
cool because like a street guy back then is very different than a
Oh
street
yeah.
guy right now, right? Like, I think what he was trying to say is he was street smart,
Hmm.
which goes
That's
back
what I
to
took from it.
what you were just
Yeah.
bringing up, right? Those skills. What makes you street smart, right? I talk about this. There's IQ and there's EQ, right? IQ is just intelligence. You're either smart or you're not. So be it. I'm particularly not that smart, I think. EQ is a whole different story. You should Google EQ. I feel like I have a high EQ, and that's helped me. EQ is street smarts. It's the ability to empathize. It's the ability to read somebody's emotions and properly communicate with them.
Mhm.
EQ helps you anticipate something that's going to happen. It's a spidey sense or whatever. And most street guys have it. If you have that out there, you're gonna do great in life.
Yeah, you got to lean into it though, Nick. If
Exactly.
you have it,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean yeah, you got to definitely kind of look inside and figure out if you have it. And you know what? If you don't have it, just get out there and get experiences and you will gain it.
Right.
Yeah. One last thing that hit me, I wrote this one down too. Oh, I asked him like, how do you want to be remembered? And that's a tough question. Like if you asked me that right now, like that would be a tough emotional answer that I'd give you is how do I want to be remembered, right? So he talks about a few different things, but he certainly wanted to be remembered as a helper, and just as like a genuine nice person. You know, I deemed him very generous. I kind of gave him that one, but I think he is, especially with like what he does with his collection, and talked about how when people reach out to him, he always tries to help them and give them advice. And
Right.
yeah. What do you
I
think
had
of
that. God, that's so funny. That was kind of my last note on this
Yeah.
section. It's like, it really stuck with me. He goes, in the most matter of fact way, how do I want to be remembered? Marshall Fogel was a nice guy. Mic drop.
Period.
It was
Yeah, could have
like,
walked off the stage right there.
and you know what? Like, damn, isn't that what it's about? Like, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at my funeral, I want to be like, yeah, it was nice to get a beer with that dude. You know, Nick
Mm-hmm.
was a fun hang. You know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah, and he put it into perspective too, because he listed off a lot of during his time were probably well-known people, right? And he started talking about them, and he's like, we don't remember this person or
Yeah.
that person anymore. So at the very least, I just want people to remember me as a nice guy. Yeah.
That is what it's all about, man.
Mhm.
I mean, being nice is part of the problem. You know, you have people, you know, it's too easy to be negative in this society nowadays. It's too easy to leave like a negative comment. It's hard to talk to somebody on the telephone and come to an understanding after 45 minutes. It's easy to respond with negative emojis and childish stuff for hours and hours.
100%.
So, you know,
Yes.
which path do you want to take, right? Like,
Mhm.
be the nice guy. Be the nice guy.
Right.
Whew, man.
Well, I think we should drop the mic with that one like Marshall did.
That's it. That's the close of
That's
the
it.
special interview series with Marshall. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was quite a bit different than what we've usually done, but given who Marshall Fogel is and what he's done for the hobby, we thought it deserved 3 parts in their entirety that we could actually devote to this on special days, so you guys can enjoy it beyond our usual episodes. So let us know in the comments maybe other stuff you wanted to ask him. We could always do a follow up with him, and this time we promise we'll get the audio working properly.
Yes, we will. We will not make that mistake again, Nick.
Oof. All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, LZ. Take care.